Hi guys, it's Krista from Playing with a Purpose. We woke up this morning to some pretty sad news that one of our local restaurants in our small town burnt down. This was actually the restaurant that I took the children to on our field trip for our community helper theme.
Well, okay. I want this one on my pizza.
So one of my daycare children overheard his parents talking about the fire, and he drove past it this morning, and so he wanted to talk about the fire. And he began to talk about it with his friends this morning. I decided that it was best to sit down and talk about it so that the children had an opportunity to express their feelings. I noticed that one of the little girls looked really frightened and she had a lot of questions. I decided to read the children some stories about our feelings, and then we had a discussion afterwards about what makes us scared. I wanted the children to have a safe place to talk about it. So today I wanted to talk to you about 5 things that I think are super important when we talk to children about fear. I think it's really important that we don't avoid scary topics with our children. When my daughter was young, she was always afraid of fire, but she never ever told us about it. And she had all these worries inside of her, but she never talked about it. So I think it's really important that we talk about things with children so that you can help them through fears that they might have. You could start by saying something like, I bet you have some questions about the pizza shop that burnt down. This is also a great opportunity to remind the children that the firemen are people that we can trust. So we can say things like, firemen are really good at their job and they know how to keep our community safe. Next time we see a fireman, we should thank him for the great job he did keeping our community safe. When I was young, I loved to watch Mr. Rogers, and I remember him saying that when he was a boy, he would get scared of things that he saw on the news, and his mom would always say, look for the helpers. Always look for the helpers. It's a great opportunity to talk about what they could do in case of an emergency, so that helps them feel more confident and prepared. So I think it's also really important that we talk to the children about how firefighters help us. Firefighters will always say that children are afraid of them because they have heavy masks on, they sound different. So it's a great opportunity to remind the children that the gear that the firemen wear look funny and sound funny, but they're there to help us. And so they are definitely helpers that we can trust. Another thing I think is really important is to not pretend that you're not afraid of anything. I think it helps children to understand that we all have different fears. Not all of us are afraid of the same things. I think it's important that as adults, we talk to the children about things that might make us afraid. I think it's important to be honest. If you're an adult that has a fear, sometimes it's important to share those fears with children so that they don't feel all alone in their feelings. This helps too when you're feeling frustrated or angry. I think it's important that adults share those feelings as well. So I talk to the children about things that make me scared. I talk to the children about how I feel if I'm on a high bridge, or if I'm up super high on a mountaintop and I'm looking down, that sometimes that makes me scared. And then I tell them the things that make me feel better. Like sometimes I take some deep breaths and that makes me feel better. I shared with the children how I overcame some of my fears the day that I went on a hike and I went up a mountain with my family. I think it's important that you share what you're feeling so that children understand that these feelings are manageable and that there are things that you can do to help you feel more safe. It's not helpful to tell a child to not be scared. If they're scared, you need to acknowledge their feelings. Sort of like what I talked about earlier, if you used to be afraid of something and you're not anymore, you could talk about things that you used to be. When I was a little girl, I was scared of bugs, but I'm not scared of bugs anymore. So again, this helps the children understand that these fears are manageable. One of my daycare girls is quite nervous when we walk in the woods, and she feels more comfortable when she holds my hand. And I think it's a wonderful way for her to feel safe. But every time she goes into the bush, she's facing a little bit of that fear that she has inside. And so I think it's really important that we don't remove the fear. So what's super exciting is that she is one of the children that asks the most often to go for walks in the forest. That makes me super encouraged that she's feeling less and less nervous every time we go. And so this is a way that she's facing her fear going into the bush, even though she feels a little bit nervous sometimes. But by talking about it and offering her support by holding her hand, or sometimes I even pick her up if she hears a noise and she's scared, this helps them face their fears in a supportive way. It's also a good idea to talk to the children about what they could do if they ever came face to face with a bear. By having a plan in place, so for a fire or in the event that you came face to face with a bear, if you have a plan, that helps relieve a lot of the stress and a lot of the anxiety, because the children know what they need to do in case of an event. So for instance, if we came face to face with a bear, what would we do? We know that we need to make lots of noise. We have black bears. You wouldn't behave the same way with a brown bear or a grizzly bear, but for black bears, they say that the best thing to do is make a lot of noise. So I talk to the children, if we were to see a bear, we need to make lots and lots of noise. One of our safety rules is always to stay together. We don't run off too far, and we always stay as a group. And the same is true for the fire. If we make a plan with children about what we are going to do in case of a fire, so they know exactly where we're going to go if there was a fire, we know exactly what we do if we ever needed help from a fireman, we know not to be afraid of them. My encouragement to you is to make sure you leave open communication with your children so that they know that they can talk about anything that they're feeling inside, and that they don't leave those feelings inside, and make a plan with them so that they know what to do in case of these kind of emergencies. I hope these tips are helpful for you. I'm Krista with Playing with a Purpose. I'll see you next time.